Howdy there, folks. Welcome into today's video. Important video here. So I want to talk a little bit about Tesla stock. I've been playing around with some Tesla numbers over the past few days, and I just want to show you a little glimpse of kind of what we're looking at here in regards to Tesla. And not just really, it's bigger than like any sort of numbers. It's more of like a frame of thought around this stock, because a lot of people, especially with Tesla stock, so highly debated, always been that way. It's been that way for 10 years now. It's not like this is a new, big debated stock. It's been like this for 10 years now. And a lot of people are looking at it like it's overvalued. It doesn't have much room for, let's just call it upside and things like that. And I want to kind of share a perspective on that and some numbers around this and kind of the way to think about this, okay? I also want to talk about small caps in this video. There's, in my opinion, an extraordinary opportunity in small caps right now. And I want to show you what's going on with countless of these companies in terms of the cost of doing business and how much that is dropping significantly right now, while these companies are simultaneously raising prices. And for some of these companies, they're not going to see any hits to their products in terms of people not buying them, but because everybody in their industries are raising prices essentially. Meanwhile, the cost to make their products is dropping at a ridiculous clip right now. And so there's some fundamental drivers that are going to drive these companies' margins, profitability, and cash flows to, let's just call it, incredible places over the next 12 to 18 months at a much quicker rate than anybody really foresaw essentially in this situation. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy this video. As always, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this with me. Thanks for everybody that's subscribed to the channel. I appreciate all you guys for being here as always. Okay, first off, we're going to talk about Tesla before we get into smalls. Okay, so in regards to Tesla, this is a company that we got to remember, and I think this is important for everybody watching this video. Remember, Tesla is still figuring it out, okay? When I say they are still figuring it out, okay, what do I mean by that? They're still figuring it out. This is a company that they're in the early days of figuring out how to make products as profitably as possible, make their company as profitable as possible, and achieve the best possible margins and things like that, okay? Now, the strides this company has taken over the past few years is ridiculous, okay? But the way some folks are looking at this, especially because Tesla's a big company now, the revenues are big and getting a lot bigger, right? Obviously, the profits have gone up considerably, so the profitability of this company is pretty big now. The market cap's big, so everybody thinks this is like a well-established company. And the way they execute is like, phenomenal. And that's like a biggest of the big companies do. But in terms of like figuring it out, in terms of margins, profitability, they're still early days in this game. And people forget that, okay? And so when you see something like last year, they had $5.5 billion of net income, this is still them figuring it out, okay? Let's be quite honest with that. And if we go back to 2017, this is a company that lost about $2 billion on their bottom line. It was incredible, the losses this company took year after year after year, with obviously 2017 being the worst, okay? And then 2018 was ugly as well. 2019 especially, okay? But they're still figuring it out. Now, meanwhile, this company made over 900,000 EVs last year, okay? Over 900,000 EVs. And off of those 900,000 EVs or so, the company still profited or still had net income of $5.5 billion. That's incredible, because if you look at their other business lines, just call it that are kind of minuscule, I almost guarantee you those lost the company money as far as net income goes. So if they cut those things out, and obviously a lot of R&D, man, imagine what their net income really should have been. Now, of course, they shouldn't do that because they want to continue to focus on growth and growth and growth in future years. So I think that's a smart idea. But remember, this company didn't even sell 1 million cars last year and still had net income of $5.5 billion while they spent a lot of money on R&D and a lot of other things, okay? Now, if we were just to take this to the most basic level, okay, Tesla should easily 10x the amount of cars they sell on a yearly basis by the end of this decade, okay? Now, Elon Musk believes that the company's going to get to 15 to 20 million cars a year they're going to sell, okay? That's a really huge number, and maybe they get there. But when I always have looked at this, I've always thought of Tesla as like a company that's going to eventually get to like a 10 million cars a year, which would put them as a big dog company, okay? And who knows, maybe Elon's right in this situation, they get to 15 to 20 mil. That's a whole other growth vector we're talking about, okay? But if we were just to say, They're going to 10x the amount of vehicles they sell by the end of this decade, right? Well, they should at least 10x their net income. Now, I think they're going to way more than 10x their net income if they're going to 10x the amount of cars sold. The bottom line is, as a company, as you grow up, right, and you figure it out, you do everything smarter. You become more profitable than it was ever even conceived you could become profitable, right? And this is what we see play out in every single big tech company ever. I don't care who you're talking about. Look at Apple, look at Microsoft, look at Google, look at Meta, look at Amazon, look at all those companies. They become way more profitable than anybody thought was ever possible, because as they scaled and got bigger and bigger, they got more cost synergies, they got smarter with the way they did everything, right? And when you're manufacturing actual products, you're just going to continue to figure out, okay, we can make it cheaper by doing this and that and this and that, right? We can save doing this and that. And so just think about that for a moment. And when you got the brand name Tesla does, which is the premier brand name in the space, yeah, okay, they should if they're going to 10x the amount of cars sold, they should way over 10x. But even if we said, okay, they're only 10x the amount of cars sold by the end of this decade, and they 10x their net income, there'd be $55 billion of just net income from the auto business, okay? We're not talking about anything else. We're not talking about the services business that should absolutely go through the roof over the next decade, especially as they sell more and more cars. Think about that. Supercharger, we'll see if they end up starting to turn that into a profit machine down the road. If they ever want to go that route, they certainly could. Imagine the profitability of that. Imagine, how many more services they're going to be able to sell over time. If you think about things like, being able to upgrade your car to, faster speeds, faster acceleration. If we think about things like, autopilot and those sorts of things. I mean, there's a million different things in games and movies and all the different things you could buy with a Tesla over time. Better maps, the functionality, like, we pay for those sorts of things in our Teslas, right? I mean, it's just, the world is theirs in terms of that. So that's just pure auto. And that's, once again, if they did a bad job. Think about that. That's if they did a bad job. $55 billion in net income just from autos, not services, not energy products, not, robots or anything else they're going to do in the future, right? And when you think about that for a moment, it's pretty darn powerful, right? Now, I want to tell you guys a little story, okay? I took my kids to the park yesterday, okay? And there was a park that's in the community I live at. And it was amazing. There was probably about 10 other families there with their kids and whatnot. It was not one. There was not two, there was not three, there were 4 different Tesla Model X's parked in the parking lot, okay? People of this community can afford any car they want. Everybody in this community is likely a multimillionaire. They can afford anything. And these folks are choosing for Model X's, okay? And there were 2 Model Ys in the parking lot as well, okay? And I just think that's very, very telling when people with money to buy any vehicle are choosing Tesla. And that's a powerful thing, because that's something we saw play out, obviously, with Apple. In the early days, it was a lot of people with a lot of money that were buying these smartphones and buying the first versions of the iPhone and things like that. And then over time, it got adopted, obviously, by the masses, right? And now roughly half of people that live in the United States of America basically, have an iPhone, right? Have an Apple phone. So that's just some food for thought there. When that's when you have the best of breed product in the world. When people with money to buy anything are choosing your product, right? That's when you have it down, okay? If it's a situation where people are very tight on money, they can choose different products. But when it's somebody that has unlimited money and they can buy anything and they're choosing that, it's pretty telling, okay? Now, next thing is very telling is, remember when I was doing videos on Tesla, which, I did some videos in 2018 about it, and then I, pivoted and did a ton of videos, and I really became the Tesla guy in the year 2019, right? And when I ran those numbers back then, I would always be laughed at and ridiculed and told that, it was a joke and all those sorts of things, right? But here's the thing. When those numbers that I had that people said they would never hit these numbers and I was a joke, they beat my numbers. They beat my numbers by a lot, okay? I had them doing, in 2021, 750,000 vehicles. They did, 940,000, 930,000 vehicles last year or so? They beat my projection by, I believe, close to 200,000 vehicles last year, okay? I am doing a little over 1 million cars in 2022. They're going to likely blow that number out of the water, okay? I had them doing just over 1.5 million cars in 2023. What number do you think they're going to put up in 2023, okay? So here we are in a situation where I was seen as a crazy guy, and they're never going to do these numbers, and yet they're killing my numbers. They did everything I had projected. They're blowing those numbers out of the water, the revenue numbers, the profitability numbers. They've gotten way more profitable than I ever thought they would get. Think about this for a moment, right? Like, that's just a frame of thought that I think is very important when a super bullish guy had his numbers just smashed. That's crazy, okay? And so, this has led me over the past few days to really look at me in regards to Tesla and start to consider, like, maybe I need to start buying the stock again, in all seriousness, because I'm looking at the numbers, just the numbers. And then I'm thinking about, gosh, Jeremy, everything you had for this company, they've blown it away. Their margins have improved way more than I thought they were going to improve at this stage. Their profitability is way more than I ever thought it would be at this stage. Their profit per car is way more than I ever thought they'd be at this stage. And so if we have a company that continues to outperform and crush my estimates, well, gosh, are they going to stop crushing my estimates, or are they just going to keep that going over the coming years, right? Just kind of some food for thought there, and I think that's just a pretty powerful whole ordeal there going on with Tesla. So yeah, for the first time in a long time, I'm actually considering, and I'm not one to buy stocks that I'm up huge on, but I've got to seriously, strongly consider it when I just look at the raw numbers and I think about what I had for this company and how they've killed it. Okay, alrighty, guys. Next up here, I want to talk to you a little bit about small caps. Okay. And, obviously these stocks have been decimated this year. Everybody knows that, okay? The companies like The Chef, companies like Honest, companies like Corsair Gaming, companies like Oatly, pull up a year to date on those, decimated. They've been absolutely destroyed, okay? And the reason those stocks have been destroyed, one, we went complete risk off. So in a complete risk off market, no one wants to hold anything that's a money losing company, anything that's questionable, anything that's went, let's call it SPAC or IPO somewhat recently. Everybody just floods out of those, right? And on top of that, these companies have been hurt immensely by essentially a lot of things that they couldn't control with the cost of things, inflation, dealing with certain things that have gone on in their business model that's hurt them dramatically, okay? But I can tell you with confidence, the situation is starting to get, let's just call it, much better over the past few months. And if this trend continues, these companies are going to likely hit margins and numbers like, you won't even believe how fast things went up, okay? I want to give you a specific example. Oatly, which sells oat milk, okay? They're the premier player in the oat milk industry, all right? They got the best brand, the biggest brand in that space, okay? Stock was absolutely decimated. First off, it showed a lot of stability, let's just call it, over the past several months. But stock absolutely got obliterated for all the reasons I kind of listed before, okay? Now, if we're thinking about Oatly, what's the two big ingredients that go in that product? One is water, one is oats, okay? So, oats. What's been going on with oats, okay? Well, the thing is Oatly's business model got absolutely decimated because a freakish thing happened. The price of oats went to numbers that people couldn't even believe, were shocked by. No one could have ever predicted oats were going to pretty much almost triple up in price in a matter of less than a year. This is ridiculous. That doesn't happen ever, but the freakish situation happened. And this basically caused Oatly's profitability and margins to be destroyed much more than they would have already been, okay? I mean, look at this. Here we are. The situation started to get bad in January of 2021. Okay, that's when things really started to just kind of uptrend. It really, honestly, so you could go back to July of 2020 is when it really started to uptrend. But January 2021, that's when it really started to get out of control, right? And then August 2021 through June 2022 is ridiculous. It's flipping flapjack and oats. These things are trading like they're Tesla stock. You got to be kidding me, okay? That's completely unnatural. That's completely unsustainable. But it happened. And this killed Oatly's profitability in a massive way and their margins in a massive, massive way. But what's happened recently? Well, over the past few months, the price of oats have started to come down. Now, keep in mind, oats are still up around 66% over the past 5 years. So there could be a lot more downside still to the price of oats over, let's just call it, the next 6 to 12 months. But the major come down has already happened now at this point, okay? Now, if you're hoping for some sort of parabolic move again, it can always happen, but it's very unlikely at this point in time, okay? That is freakish. Whatever happened there, freakish, okay? Unsustainable, yeah, freakish, okay? Now, think about another thing that hurt Oatly in a massive way. Here's the deal, okay? When you are scaling anything, your profitability is not going to be in a pretty place. And I don't care what you're scaling. If you're scaling production of anything, usually your margin is going to be awful. Your profitability is going to be awful when you're scaling, okay? Now, when you're already gotten to scale, that's when the money starts pouring in when you're manufacturing anything. I don't care if you're building a car or you're selling oat milk, okay? At the end of the day, when you're scaling, I've just never seen it where a company's in that scaling process and it's like, wow, look at their profitability. It's so amazing. It's once they've scaled a facility or facilities, that's when the real money starts pouring in, okay? And ask anybody that knows anything about manufacturing, they will tell you the exact same thing. It's not like I just made that up. Like that, literally anybody that knows anything about a manufacturing business of any kind, that's just the way it works. It's always been the way it works. It's still to this day the way it works, okay? And so they opened up some facilities over the past couple of years, and those have been in a scaling process. But most of those facilities now, and over the next few quarters, are already going to be at scale, okay? Now they're going to continue to increase production and things like that, but they're going to be at scale, especially over the next 2 or 3 quarters, which... guess what? If you see a company at scale in terms of their facilities, you're going to see the profits start rolling in, okay? So that's been going on. On top of that, think about it. Transportation, they need to transport their products everywhere, right? So one of the other biggest costs of their business model is going to be transportation. Now, this isn't just an issue, obviously, with a company like Oatly, right? It's an issue for everybody that has to transport products around in the trucking industry, right? And, look at like refrigerated prices year over year. I mean, we're talking about they fell off a cliff, right? And not just that. I mean, you look at prices of basically any sort of trucking transportation, they've come down immensely. Unfortunately, the price of fuel has gone up immensely, right? And that's not going to be sustainable forever, but that is something, everybody's kind of had to deal with, especially over the summer months. And so when you think about these things, right, when you think about what you had to pay to just move product around the United States, is ridiculous. That's starting to get a lot better, and it's starting to get a lot better a lot faster, okay? That's unsustainable, kind of what was going on in the trucking industry, and prices are getting in a much better place, okay? This shows you kind of the spot market and shows you just over the past few months. The trend is still down over the past several months, okay? This is just something to keep in mind. Not only is the trend down over the past, let's just call it year, but the trend's going down over the last several months when it comes to just about everything. And this helps if you're transporting any physical good around, it's going to help you. If you're a company that sells digital goods, this doesn't make much of a difference to you. But if you're a company that sells physical products of some kind, right? I think about companies like The Chef. I think about companies like Oatly, right? Food-related companies, drink-related companies. Yeah. I think about anybody that sells anything that's a big physical product. This is going to help you out in a massive, massive way. Could even help companies like good old Tesla. Think about, to go back to Tesla for a moment, think about what Tesla's done with their profitability and their net income. Despite the supply chain disaster, despite costs of everything being astronomically high, for them to still put up those numbers, think about that for a moment. That just speaks volumes about that one, right? Now, also, if you're a company that you own a company, you're thinking about owning a company that has to, let's just call it, ship product overseas, well, that situation's getting much better, much more quickly, okay? This shows you the Global Container Freight Index, okay? And basically, once again, starting around January 2021, prices went up like it was Bitcoin price or something like that. What in the world happened there, okay? It was very customary for a container to cost you maybe $2,000. And then we start talking about over 10,000? What? What? A 5x, if not more than a 5x in the price? That's completely ridiculous and completely unsustainable. But companies got hit with that. And they had to do that. They had to deal with that, right? And any company that you have to transport product overseas, you got hit with that. But look at the trend recently over the past few months. Things are getting much better. But keep in mind, that's just the start. This baby's going back down to $2,000. I can tell you that. It ain't staying up there forever. This is a commoditized business model. And at the end of the day, these container rates will eventually go down to $2,000, back where they belong. Now think about how many companies have raised price, right, in this environment, while likely the cost of doing business is getting cheaper and better for all these companies now. Do you think they're going to all magically go out and lower price now? No. All the oat milk companies pretty much have gone up in price, let's say over the past few months, and will likely continue to over the next few months, right? Meanwhile, the price of oats are skyrocketing down. Let's just call it that, skyrocketing down, if that makes any sense. They're flying down, right? And transportation costs is flying down. So two of the biggest costs to doing business, right? So just think about that. Do you think they're going to be in a rush to say, oh gosh, prices are going down for all the inputs. Now let's just lower our price. You think they're going to do that? Oh man, you haven't been around the corporate world too long, okay? They're going to be in no rush to lower prices and be like, oh yeah, let's lower our prices back down now. No, of course not. That's not the way this works, right? It's never been the way this works. So these companies will all see their margins increase dramatically over not just the coming quarters, but likely over the next couple of years, okay? And so that's something that's going to play out, and this is going to benefit these small caps, in my opinion, the most, because those are the most, let's just call it the hardest hit by everything that's kind of gone on there. The Coca-Colas, the Pepsis, the big dog companies, the Campbell Soups, and those sorts of companies, they'll be helped by this as well. It's just, those companies are at such a scale, and they're just so, everything they do in their business model is just on a higher level than the small companies that, unfortunately, they didn't get hit as hard. Let's just call it that, okay? And so they don't recover as much, right? Now, in terms of short sellers and the people negative on the market, at this point in time, they're in complete delusion now at this point. They're completely delusional because they assume that because we've had an unprecedented amount of negative things all thrown at the stock market over the past 2.5 years, between Rona, between massive inflation, between geopolitical things, right? Between invasions of countries, between commodities just going to numbers no one even could have thought that this could have happened, like containers going to prices no one ever thought were possible. Trucking industry went bananas, right? Everything went crazy. And so now the shorts are in this false assumption that they think that just because everything's been going constantly bad for over a year now, that it's going to continue to go bad. And that's where you get into complete delusion. Because as a long in the market, you understand that things are not going to be perfect all the time. There's going to be certain time periods where it seems like it's just everything's going right? And it's like, my gosh, like everything that could be going right is going right. And there's going to be other times in the market that you understand it's along where it's like everything is literally working against you. And for the past year plus, if you own a stock, basically it's just about everything possible has been working against companies. And I mean just about everything possible. But the shorts now, because they've had this kind of like a year, if not over a year, of just everything going wrong, that now they think that's just going to continue and everything's going to go wrong for all of eternity. And it's never going to go right again. And they're sorely mistaken. And that's just kind of the bottom line with that. And a lot of these stocks are going to make moves that people, are just going to be amazed at. And, and then they'll try to fear you up in terms of like, it's going to go down more and things like that. And it's like, I'll buy more. I'll increase my ownership more. Like it literally doesn't matter. I win either way. Send the stocks down, I increase my ownership. Send the stocks up, I make a bunch of money. Either way, it's a win. And, they like to just be in kind of their delusion mode, and that's fine. They can do what they want to do. That's, I ain't never met a rich short seller in my life. Not one. Been in the stock market 14 years, and I know a lot of people and never met a rich short seller in my life, okay? Not in my life. I covered about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did a video on the channel, and it's called Buy Every Major Dip in Sight. And in that video, I talk about all the forms of stimulus that are coming over the next, let's just call it, 6 to 12 months out there. And if you never got to check out that video, I think it's a very important video that you might just want to watch, okay? That's all I'll say about that, because the stuff I covered in that, no one else is covering that. The only thing people are covering right now is obviously doomsday-related things, how the whole market's going to collapse, or all going to zero, all stocks to zero. It's all the end of the world. That's the fear-monger stuff. That's what gives views, man. If I want views, I'll just do that as well. But that's not... that whole thing is just a game, okay? Let's just call it that. It's all just a game. And pay attention to that video. That's all I'll say to you guys, okay? Much love as always. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you didn't get a chance to check out my brand new channel, holy smokers, this ain't no jokers. We're approaching 11,000 subscribers now on that channel already. I appreciate everybody that's subscribed over there. Much love as always, and have a great day.